Have you ever stopped and wondered why you choose one brand over another, or why some ads just seem to stick in your head? Well, it turns out it's not random. There's a whole science dedicated to influencing your choices, often in ways you don't even notice. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on neuromarketing, and it all kicks off with one pretty staggering number.
Let's just start with a number that is kind of mind-blowing. According to researchers at Harvard, a whopping 95% of our purchasing decisions are not made by our logical, conscious brain. Nope, they happen deep down in our subconscious. Think about that for a second. For every 20 decisions you make while shopping, only one of them is truly, deliberately thought out.
And look, if that 95% sounds a little abstract, the feeling behind it is something we have all experienced. You know the drill. You just pop into the store for milk and bread, and somehow you walk out an hour later with a cart full of stuff and a $140 receipt. We've all been there.
So that's the big mystery we're going to unpack today. If your rational brain isn't really in the driver's seat for most of your shopping trip, then what part of you is? Who's actually steering the cart?
Well, the answer is that your brain is basically wired to run on autopilot most of the time. To get through the day without being totally overwhelmed, it relies on a whole bunch of hidden mental shortcuts.
Psychologists have a great way of explaining this. They call it System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is your fast brain. It's automatic, emotional, your gut reaction. It's always on. Then you have System 2. That's your slow, logical brain. It's the one that does the hard work, but it takes real effort to fire it up. So most of the time, especially when we're browsing in a store, we're just cruising along using System 1.
And these System 1 shortcuts, they have a name: cognitive biases. They're basically predictable patterns or glitches in our thinking that don't always lead to the most logical choices. And here is the absolute key. Because these patterns are predictable, they can be influenced.
All right, let's look at one of the most powerful ones in action, the anchoring bias. This is our brain's tendency to just latch onto the very first piece of information it gets and use that as a reference point for everything that comes after.
Check this out. Let's talk about the price of gas. $2.50 a gallon. Is that a good price? Well, it completely depends on your anchor. If you're used to paying, say, $1.85, then $2.50 feels like a total ripoff. But if you've been paying over $3 for months, that same $2.50 price suddenly feels like a fantastic deal. The number itself didn't change at all, but your anchor, your reference point, changed your entire feeling about it.
So, if our brains are running on all these predictable shortcuts, it makes sense that marketers would have figured this out, right? This is where we open up the neuro-marketing playbook.
First up, the framing effect. You're looking at two yogurts. One says 99% fat-free. The one next to it says contains 1% fat. Now, mathematically, they are identical. But which one feels healthier? Our brain is always going to be drawn to the positive frame, fat-free. It just goes to show that how you say something is often way more important than what you're actually saying.
All right, here is a classic scenario. We've all been here. You're at the movie theater concession stand, staring up at the menu, trying to figure out which popcorn to get.
Okay, so you see the small is $3. Fine. But then you see the medium is $6.50. Whoa, that seems like a crazy jump in price. But then you see the large. It's only $7, just 50 cents more than that ridiculously priced medium. All of a sudden, that large popcorn seems like an amazing deal, doesn't it?
And that's the trick. The medium popcorn is what's known as a decoy. It's not actually meant to be sold. Its only job is to exist, to be a terrible option so that it makes the large size look like an absolute bargain by comparison. They're guiding you right to the option they want you to pick.
And then you have two other heavy hitters designed to make us bypass our logical brain: scarcity and urgency. Scarcity is all about limited quantity. Only 3 left in stock. That makes the item feel more special, more valuable. Urgency, on the other hand, is about limited time. That countdown timer on a sales page. Its goal is to get you to act now. Both of them create a fear of missing out, pushing you to feel instead of think. Now, these kinds of techniques are as old as markets themselves. But what happens when you pour rocket fuel on them with modern technology? Well, there's a new player in the game that's taking this playbook to a completely different level: artificial intelligence. And this is where things get really fascinating, and maybe just a little unsettling.
We are entering the era of what's called emotional AI. This is technology that is designed not just to track your clicks, but to actually read your emotional state, maybe from your facial expressions or the tone of your voice. So imagine an ad that doesn't just know what products you've looked at, but knows if you're feeling happy or stressed or tired, and then tailors its message to you in that exact moment.
And this isn't some far-off sci-fi concept. People already have very real concerns. A survey in the UK about emo toys, toys that can react to a child's emotions, found that a massive 68% of adults were worried about where that emotional data was going. Could it be used to advertise to a child when they're at their most vulnerable? That's a pretty heavy question.
This really gets us to a critical ethical line. Persuasion is one thing, but manipulation is defined as actively exploiting someone's weaknesses, their cognitive or emotional vulnerabilities. And when a system can detect those vulnerabilities in real time, like knowing you're feeling impulsive or sad, well, the potential to cross that line from helpful personalization to outright manipulation gets incredibly high.
So, what do we do about all this? The point here isn't to get paranoid about every single ad you see. The goal is to become aware. Because once you understand the playbook, you start to get the advantage back. And that's really the central debate we all have to grapple with. When does a company helping you find something you might like cross over into a company exploiting your subconscious to get you to buy something you don't need? There isn't an easy answer, but just knowing to ask the question is a huge first step.
So here's a simple cognitive toolkit to help you out. 4 quick habits. First, just learn to recognize the tactic. Simply being able to say, that's a decoyed price, or okay, that's fake urgency, takes away a lot of its power. Second, just pause. The whole point of urgency is to make you rush. Just take 5 seconds. Give your slow, rational brain a chance to catch up. Third, separate emotion from fact. Ask yourself, how does this ad make me feel versus what does this product actually do? And finally, always question the why. Why am I seeing this specific offer, presented in this specific way, right at this moment?
At the end of the day, the world of marketing isn't going to suddenly change, but you can. By understanding these hidden forces that are trying to shape your decisions, you're the one who gets back in control. The next time you go shopping, you're going to see these tactics everywhere, I guarantee it. So the only real question left is, now that you know the playbook, what are you going to choose to notice?